Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the second ever episode of the Wrestle Geek podcast. I'm Mitch, once again joined by my co-hosts. First off, once again, Rich, how's it going, buddy?
Going great, Mitch. How's everybody doing over there? Great week. Glad to be back.
Yeah, we had a good week this week. Went very quickly. It seems like it was just yesterday that we were filming our first episode. And also joining us from across the globe, right in the United Kingdom. Let's hear it for our our world correspondent. We're taking it to Howie. What's up, Howie?
Good evening. I guess it's evening there. Early evening for you, late evening for me. But yeah, everything's good. I've had a good week in general. I'm happy to be back here on the Wrestle Geek podcast. Thank you for inviting me again. I guess I did a good job last week. Busy week. I've been making a lot of retro belts, which is this new project that I've been doing. Hasbro styled intercontinental and tag belts. Thank you to everyone who's ordered some. Fantastic. But yeah, and
which you can find over outside of America and Canada. You can find them at Wrestling Figure Workshop. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Wrestling Figure Workshop on Instagram.
In the United States or Canada, you can check out Hasdel Toy. Or is that how you say it?
I like it. I like the way you say it. You could say it however you want, as long as you use the English accent, and you can say it however you like.
Hasdel Toy. But I've been busy as hell doing that, and then one of my kids got sick, and then lo and behold, he got better, and my wife got sick. So it's been pretty crazy.
Steamrolling, one thing after the other.
But that is it. I'm here.
We give the wife nothing but well wishes, and we hope speedy recovery on the illness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
My son was also sick this week.
As soon as possible.
Across the globe somehow. We have the same bug going around in the United Kingdom that we have going on here in the United States. So maybe it's it travels quick nowadays. But yeah, my son was also ill this week. And I don't know. I thought maybe it was just a kid thing for some reason. It was kind of like centralized just to children. But seeing as your wife got sick, I don't know if that's a possibility now. So
yeah, I mean, it's hopefully I don't get it. That would really put a spanner in the works. But yeah, I had a new experience this week, which is I've learnt that it's very, very difficult to remove the smell of vomit from a sofa.
Oh,
it's one of those I'll never forget this experience. But I've learned vinegar. Apparently,
we were talking about this yesterday. And I remember we had sent vinegar almost in sync simultaneously. That your vinegar removes the. It was daddy talk, I guess, yesterday for a little while. So,
it was.
Yeah. We had our own podcast that we didn't record yesterday, which I'm upset that we didn't. We didn't record that.
There's some highlights, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, guys. I mean, we had a somewhat interesting, I guess, week in wrestling. There was a couple of news that broke, and I guess we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's start right off with the Raw recap. Just like last week, we're not going to be as in depth with it this week as we were last week, folks. We kind of we get sidetracked, and then we start talking about 100 other things, which is usually a really good thing. So it actually worked out to our benefit. But this week we're going to try to. I don't think there was as much importance this week as last week for the most part. But the first thing we saw on Raw is Braun Strowman coming out to a huge pop. People really seem to be taken to Braun Strowman. I mean, I'm a fan. I like him. I don't know if we really covered this at all, but from my recollection. But what are you guys feeling on Braun Strowman? Did we really go over that? I don't think we really covered that. So
we lightly touched on it. We were just like comparing to like how he is now in the industry compared to when he first showed up and was with Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family.
Right.
And it's amazing how his transformation, how he's improved from that point when he started to now.
Yeah, I mean, but at this point, it kind of seems like, especially like you say, in a week, a lot of things can happen, and I feel like. True. People were already kind of like gravitating toward him, but now I feel like, since everything that happened last week with the scaffolding and everything like that, I feel like people are, if he wasn't legitimized as the monster before, he's definitely legitimized as a monster now, and I feel like people definitely want they want to be on his side. You know what I'm saying? And for good reason. But
well, they want him to slay the beast finally. You know,
right.
let's get rid of Lesnar as Universal Champion. You know, enough is enough.
And we
I think what I've seen from the results, he's very much been the center of the show in many respects. You know, rampaging through everything. But it made me think about this setup with Brock Lesnar and with Kane. I've got a feeling that if he does go over, it will be by defeating Kane. I mean, I'm not entirely clear on the stipulations of the match, but is it possible that he could pin Kane, win the Universal title, and therefore retain the appearance of, you know, the strong standing of Brock Lesnar, that he didn't beat Brock Lesnar for the title, that kind of thing. So there's a kind of open door for
Wouldn't
Brock
it be
to
interesting
return in the future?
True, but wouldn't it be interesting though? Like, you know, everybody's kind of having Kane like kind of in the back burner. Like, what if Kane is the one that actually pulls it out and actually wins the title? You know,
that would be,
you know,
awesome. I would,
you know
I
what I
would
mean?
totally be on board with that.
I mean, full shock value. Like, wow, you know, nobody thought Kane is like kind of like an afterthought. I feel going into this match. It's either Lesnar or Strowman, and Kane is just
especially after
there.
that choke slam that got no sold last
Yeah.
week.
Oh God, please don't get me started with that
Again.
You know, again.
Yeah.
But here my quick scenario for this. And you guys may agree, may disagree. I could see, you know, Lesnar and Kane going over. Strowman winds up getting screwed out of the title somehow. He shows up at number 30 in the Rumble, and he winds up decimating everybody, actually winning the Rumble, going to WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Good twist.
So
I like surprise.
So you're saying that Braun Strowman wins the Royal Rumble?
I'm saying that's a possibility. I mean, if they're gonna definitely have somebody, I think, at the number 30 spot be like a big pop. They're not gonna go the Roman Reigns route again. At least I'm hoping they're not gonna go that route. I'm hoping.
I remember
you know,
I remember reading or hearing about somewhere that they were gonna have Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, and it was gonna be kind of like them fighting again, and then Roman Reigns defeats Brock Lesnar and kind of like becomes the new, you know, big deal, I guess. Like the new Brock Lesnar type character, which I'm not with it. I really don't want to see Roman Reigns versus Lesnar again.
It'd be a real shame because I feel like with Braun Strowman, the way they're building him up and making him this kind of centerpiece of the viewing,
right.
I feel like we're due a payoff. You know, it's got to go somewhere. It'll be, you know, not that that's an impossibility. WWE have done that a lot, where it doesn't come to anything. But yeah, I feel like we've already had, at pay-per-views, he's not going over. He's getting all this kind of time and development, but then when it counts, it's just not getting he's getting given the opportunity, but he's just not getting put over. So, I feel like we're due. It's time.
Yeah,
he needs to be champion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. And you know what it is, and so we see him come out, and then Kurt Angle comes out and basically reprimands him and says that he can't just go around and do what he did the week before with the scaffolding and all that, and he could have really seriously hurt somebody, you know. And then supposedly he fires Braun Strowman, and then that's basically how it ends, I guess, that segment anyway. And then we go from that to Titus Worldwide, I guess that's what they're being called now, versus The Bar. I mean, do we really need to see this match again? I don't know. You know, like
wasn't it that they beat The Bar last week, and so this was the rubber match to see if it was a fluke or not.
And they beat them again. Yeah,
they beat them again.
Yeah.
So I mean, that it is what it is with that. You know, you got to see Rollins and Jason Jordan, and they came out and whatever. So I mean, personally, I'm not feeling this whole thing. This whatever triangle they're trying to, put forward here. But I know that at Royal Rumble they're gonna have the rematch, and it's gonna be The Bar versus Rollins and Jordan again. So, but it is what it is. So moving.
Did you guys hear that there was a possible injury to Jordan? That's why they didn't wrestle yesterday.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I heard there was a possible injury. They didn't disclose exactly what it was. It could have been something minor, but that's the reason why Jordan was left off the show as far as competing. So I guess they have to monitor going forward to see if he's going to be able to wrestle at the Rumble. I mean, I'm sure he will. But I find that as an interesting side note.
Yeah, I didn't even read it because I didn't really read any news today or anything. I had a tree that needed to be cut down in front of my house that's been falling apart for the last year and a half since I bought the house. So my hands were tied, and then I had to watch my son for a little while while my fiance went out and did her thing. She had to do some errands and stuff like that. So I really didn't get a chance to, to go over like the rumors and innuendo and stuff like that. So, but I'll take your word for it. You're reliable. You're an accredited source, Richard.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Just with regards to Braun Strowman, Richie, last week you did allude or bring up the question if Braun Strowman was a strongman previously, and I looked into this. I can confirm he was a strongman. He did strongman competitions, and that I can confirm he is insane.
He's legitimately strong.
I'm a credible source. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that.
You see that, Rich? You're a bank full of useless information. We appreciate that here at the Wrestle Geek podcast.
My pleasure to contribute, gentlemen. My pleasure.
So we go from one Jason Jordan rumor and innuendo, and we go to the next thing: Cedric Alexander versus Tony Nese, with another guy who it's kind of dubious whether he is or isn't legitimately injured, Enzo Amore.
Hey,
so
how you doing?
Yeah, he's a certified G and a bona fide stud.
And you can't teach that.
And you can't teach that. So
realest guy in the room.
How you doing?
It doesn't sound the same when I say it, does it? It's not the same.
It sounds too.
It doesn't have that.
It just sounds too intelligent when you say it. That's the problem.
Bada bing.
Yeah. Bada bing.
Bada boom. What is it? Bada bing.
Bada boom.
Bada boom. Bada bing. Bada bang.
Now, if you said it,
in a room.
If you said it in German, it might sound even more. It might sound even more. I don't
know. Perhaps not. I don't want to offend anybody.
I am part German, folks, so don't think we're being.
I'm also sure my heritage links back to
yes,
Germany somewhere along the line.
Yeah, of course. So
I've been wanting to do one of those DNA tests for a while. You know, those things where you get the bottle through and you spit in it.
I like that. Yeah, you put a little bit of your semen in there and you mix it up with a little bit of your blood, and you kind of put all your bodily fluids together. You take a little bit of feces, and they just test every nook and cranny of your DNA from every bodily orifice that they can possibly stick a swab in. It's like, yeah, swab my, I don't know. Anyway, I'm trying to keep it clean. It's just not that kind of podcast.
Yeah. But that's maybe we could do get a sponsor with one of those. What is it?
Maybe
that's
DNA.com or whatever it is. Yeah.
We did it.
We swabbed the deck with the competition.
That's one of the regulars I see on
podcasts.
Joe Rogan or Jericho or something. There'll often be one of these an advert, a sponsor of one of these DNA things. There's usually a mattress. Fold-away mattress, and then there's also, a website company.
Yeah.
I'm not mentioning any actual brands.
Yeah.
Because there's more than one brand.
They gotta pay us for that.
We can't. They gotta pay if you want to.
I mean, we have a solid audience of 3 people that listen to the show, and one of them is Rich, the other one's Mitch, and the other one is Howie. We can't forget about Mum though. Mum listens. So,
my mum listens.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. She's a super fan. She has the T-shirt too. We're gonna be having that soon. Right? It'll be available.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I think with those viewership statistics you just gave us, that does cover your introduction of lady, gentleman, boy, but not a girl.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to start saying it like the Heath Ledger Joker when I open up and be like, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." It's gonna
just
be
one gentleman.
Just one man. You want to know how I got these scars? Oh man. So moving on, we were talking. Oh, so did we ever even cover the results? No.
No. Wait. We said Cedric Alexander
versus Tony Nese, and Cedric Alexander goes over. Enzo Amore looking on, confused and angrily at the end of the match. So we were speaking about you actually brought this up, Howie, when we were talking about Braun Strowman's strength, and we have a fictitious, somehow set up Hollywood style Hulk Avengers special effects where Braun Strowman supposedly flips over one of those tractor trailers, that thing that pulls the 18-wheeler or whatever, and
Awesome.
he flips that over with his bare hands. I don't know how I felt about it. It didn't make me angry, but I just feel like it's a little bit too much. Like, if this man could flip over a freaking truck, he should be able to pick up Brock Lesnar with a pinky. So I don't know. I think
it goes into comparison. Like, you think, like, in the Avengers when the Hulk just grabs Loki and pushes it back and forth, and like in Stark and Tower, puny god. I think it's like smashing him into the ground.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how I feel about the whole. He's like superhuman strength. I mean, I know he's a strong guy, but this is just a little bit too much. I mean, I know you have to use that suspension of disbelief when you're watching wrestling and stuff, but this is like major suspension. I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't ruin Braun Strowman for me because I know it's not his fault that they're doing this with him. But I'm not a big fan of like he's a freaking superhero or a supervillain. I'm not really big on that.
Yeah, it's it's certainly one of those moments that we.
It's like Super Shredder.
Yeah.
What's he gonna? I don't know. Maybe that's the thing in the Royal Rumble. Where he'll get so pissed, he loses the match, comes out, flips over the ring.
That's what I'm saying. I was just about to say, what's next? He's gonna flip over the ring.
Braun, you're gonna destroy us all. Then so be it.
So be it.
Braun.
And then you just look over in the corner, and Kevin Nash has his arms folded, and he's pissed because that was my gimmick. That was my gimmick. That's gimmick, and you guys gotta pay me now.
Yeah, he'll be like, yo, back in 1995, Vince asked me to flip a truck. I said no.
I said no way. I said Vinny Vegas don't flip no trucks, okay? Vinny Vegas flips girls. That's it. He don't flip no trucks. So, moving on to the next topic, we have the Revival. And they come out basically to an old school squash match with, I guess, a local team. I didn't really recognize the people. But in any case, so then they cut this big promo about how they're actually and I was really surprised to hear this from them, but they cut this big promo about how they're not sports entertainers and they're professional
wrestlers.
Yeah. And they that was kind of like a jab to Vince McMahon, which I'm obviously was scripted, But
that's a little Triple H work right there, I think.
Yeah. And but I actually was digging it. I actually paid attention, and they remind me a lot of like the Brainbusters, like Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard.
Yeah.
That's
their angle, isn't it?
Yeah. They're like shooters almost, like the real deal kind of, old school, like enforcer type guys. No pun intended.
Hence the name, the Revival.
Yeah.
I just hope they get a good run now.
Me too.
Like, because they were great in NXT, and then they had this the misfortunate injured status, and they just haven't had a crack at it yet. And I'd like to see them, put something together, because it's really cool to have some guys who are really committed to being a tag team. Back in the day, that's what tag teams were all about. They sort of like said, right, things aren't going for us as singles. Do you know what? We should get really good at being a tag team and do this properly. And I don't like it when tag teams are just kind of like smashed together and they put together and then forced to become something, and they don't do it for very long. Think about the Road Warriors or something, or Demolition. These guys were great tag team specialists, and I think that's what the Revival certainly is the blueprint of, in the same mold. And it's refreshing in a way.
It's like a continuation of the older tag teams, Rock and Roll Express, those type of guys.
Yeah, it's cool. So I would like to see them. Hopefully, let's just hope. We're the best tag team in the world, but if they get injured again, my God, plagued by injury.
It's a shame, because I really enjoyed them in NXT, like you said. They were really
Yeah.
good. And then, like you said, they kind of had that short-lived first initial run, you know. But hopefully good things for them. We wish them the best.
Definitely.
Not in their future endeavors, but in their current endeavor. So, but and then we had Roman Reigns versus the Miz Taraj, which consists of Dallas and Axel. These guys. I mean, we kind of knew how this was going to end up. Miz is on the outside of the ring. I actually thought that they were going to pull one over on Reigns and actually beat him, but that didn't happen. He wound up still spearing Axel and then pinning him with the spear. So that was that match. That was the finish.
I kind of feel for the Miz Taraj, Axel and Bo. They, is that his name? Bo Dallas, is that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That is his name. See, I've done it again. I keep going blank on names. It kind of devalues your heels a lot if they just kind of get squashed by Roman Reigns. It's kind of, isn't it better to kind of have, you think about, if you're trying to set up a good angle, Roman Reigns always looks strong. That's his thing. But sometimes it gives people a reason to tune in next week and things like that if he's under threat. If you think like Randy Savage wasn't invincible. That guy was really good at having a real kind of structure to his matches where he kind of got his ass kicked quite a lot and then kind of got the win at the end. He had that moment. And but with Roman Reigns, he just crushes people. And they're two really talented guys and they've been doing jobs for everybody. I feel for those two.
And they're both third-generation superstars too, right? I mean,
IRS and Mr. Perfect. Yeah.
Like, what kind of sadistic person is Vince McMahon that is the offspring of people who worked well for him? That does he get kind of some kind of sick pleasure out of sort of like putting them into these kind of second-rate positions where actually they're extremely talented workers, and they've got lineage which gives them the clout to whatever they do. It baffles me sometimes.
Yeah, and
they do that, treat them like jobbers.
They definitely. I mean, let's not forget too. Curtis Axel was a former Intercontinental Champion too. So it's like, I don't understand what happened with him. I don't know if it was his attitude. Did he get in trouble for something? I really don't know what the final word.
I also with the gimmick. With the gimmick, the name Miz Taraj, when it's like we did with Damien Sandow, we're calling him Mizdow. I think it's a better investment if they were just called the Entourage rather than Miz Taraj, because it's too specific. I think if they were called the Entourage, it's like it could become something in its own right.
They could be both individual stars in their own right within the group. With the Miz Taraj, they're kind of lackeys that are behind the Miz.
It kind of holds them down. I agree with that.
It's holding,
Like the Acolytes. Remember, they were the Acolytes, but that meant follower. Like that was the definition of an acolyte.
Right.
I think they call in the the Catholic religion, the Acolytes are altar boys. They can also be acolytes, but it's like a synonym. So, but then when they broke off on their own, and then they did the APA, which is the Acolyte Protection Agency.
Right, but they were their own individuality. So they broke out.
It wasn't like the Undertaker rights, you know what I'm saying? Like they were able to still use that and like make it work for them,
Right,
so
absolutely.
I agree with that 100%.
They deserve more.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. And then the next match we had a women's match, another one. It was Sasha Banks versus Sonya Deville. I don't know.
Did any of you guys notice that when Sasha came out, she had like no pop at all?
Yeah, it seems like she's. I think people are. I think part of the reason is because she hurt Paige, and I think some people are angry about that.
But I feel she's falling into the same bracket like of what's going on with Bayley. People are just tired of seeing her, and it's just like they're ready for a change. They got to change it up a little bit.
She was much better off as a heel, I believe. I think she was a great heel.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Bayley, I think if she turned heel, I think that would be a great thing for her right now, especially since she's so. It's like she's floundering too, like you said. They both have that same curse, and I feel like, again, like we were talking about last week, I feel that the NXT curse is
Yep.
upon them. Just like
Yeah.
most of the other people that come up from the NXT also.
They get lost in a shuffle.
It's good to see Sonya Deville go over in that one. I think that shift that is required. The obvious thing, if Sasha went over in that match, that nothing's gained. But you're kind of on the way to making a new star by having her go over Sasha in that way. And I'm a fan of Sonya Deville. I think she's good. And do you know what? It may sound like a really small detail. I thought she looked great with her hair down.
Oh yeah. And then at the end of the match, she put it up, right?
Like her, what is it? Her thing is like.
It definitely gave her a different look, for sure.
I liked it. She's not the most attractive person in the world, but having her hair down definitely helped her. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, I think that's important. That's important. Let's not, let's not try and skirt around that fact. But, I mean, her what's her phrase? It's something like put your hair up and stand up. Well, I can't remember what it is. It's but so that possibly doesn't make sense if she has her hair down. Sorry for my inaccuracy, but it's I can't remember. I'd have to do some research on this. But they need that. They need to put over people, elevate them in status.
I felt like that finish was weak though. Like she kicked her in the belly. I don't know if she was supposed to kick her in the face and pin her, or it was just a botch because she came off the top or whatever it was, or she came at her, whatever the story was. I don't know if she was supposed to kick her in the face, but she kicked her in the belly, and she pinned her with a belly kick. I don't know. That was pretty. That was weak. I don't know. At least that's what I saw. I saw a belly kick. But it was cool that she won. I think it was needed. But
speaking of, because there is in NXT at the moment, there is another MMA style fighter, isn't there? Female MMA fighter turned wrestler, Shayna Baszler, and it looks like they're pushing her. And so I can imagine one day she's going to move up into the main roster. A little bit away from that yet, but it seems like a blueprint they're keen on applying.
Yeah, it's a cool gimmick, I mean, I feel like going back to the other days, it was I think it was pioneered mostly by Ken Shamrock, and at one time I was a huge fan of Ken Shamrock. And you definitely got those. You can never forget that. Like that, he was the first guy to come over from the UFC. I mean, they really hype up, Brock Lesnar in that sense. But I feel, sometimes because Brock Lesnar came back from UFC and everything, I feel like sometimes people forget about Ken Shamrock. And I feel like at one point he was probably one of the number one guys, wrestlers in the business. He was really popular too. And I guess Ken Shamrock could go on that list too of people that never won the world title that maybe should have at one point,
Yeah.
A lot of people were really high on him for a while, and then he made the mistake of leaving and going back to UFC. It didn't do him any favors,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was definitely over. It was edgy, wasn't it? Bringing him in at the time that they did.
Yep.
Coincided with that era.
I always remember that match he had with The Rock at WrestleMania 14 for the NL title, and he just starts suplexing like belly to belly. Everybody, get out of my way! And he's like, he snapped.
The referees and stuff, everybody was getting suplexed.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then we have the main event here, Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. And Rich, you could take that one. I know you were excited about this, so.
It is the return of the curb stomp.
Oh yes.
Now to be known as the Blackout, which was what he called the move in his NXT days. So very, very happy to see the move finally back in Seth Rollins' arsenal. Very, very happy to see it.
Yeah, got a good pop from what I've seen. It was it's a good. I can understand the controversy it created previously, but at the end of the day, it isn't really a curb stomp. It is a wrestling move, and calling it the Blackout is a good way of getting around that detail, which people are hung up on about. So, but yeah, it's a really great. it works. Of all the finishes he's tried recently, because he had the pedigree, the Kingslayer knee, and having this one is definitely the better finisher. It differentiates him, and the people responded to that.
They should
call
that big knee the nose slayer.
Mm.
Oh God,
John Cena.
Jeez. But Howie, you and I discussed this a little bit earlier, and we were saying like the Kingslayer would be a good signature move to set up for the blackout. He spins him around, hits it with the knee, knocks him down. He's stunned. Yep. You gotta know it hits him with the blackout. 1, 2, 3, match over.
Yeah, because they can get hit with the knee and then drop down and set up perfectly.
Yeah, a good 1-2 combination.
Definitely a good setup move. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, decent match, and that was the end of Raw. And I guess little notes that I have in the back of my head. They definitely went in with the hypes for the 25th anniversary of Monday Night Raw. It seemed like every time they went to commercial or were coming back from a commercial, they had some kind of reference to next week's big episode of Raw, where we're gonna have a ton of old guys and
Let me ask you guys a question. What do you think is gonna be the biggest moment of the 25th anniversary? Who are we gonna see that we did not expect? Because I'm pretty sure they're gonna put somebody on the show that wasn't announced yet, or they're gonna do some sort of angle.
What about Hogan?
That would be great.
That would be incredible seeing Hogan.
But Austin's gonna be there, right?
I mean, yeah.
What about The
and
Rock?
Now, there's been speculation he might be there. There hasn't been fully confirmed, but there has been speculation he will be there.
Or at the very least via satellite or something.
Via satellite. Mm-hmm. The Rock is here from the set of his new movie, Skyscraper.
Oh man!
mentions the movie every 30 seconds.
I guarantee you, there's gonna be a WrestleMania match that gets put into effect from this Monday Night Raw.
And I'm gonna call it now. I'm saying it's gonna wind up being Taker and Cena.
Yeah, I remember you and I were talking about this the other day on the phone. And we came up with all these cool scenarios.
Yeah,
None of them will probably come through, but
I've got a good one for you. Here's a twist. So a good friend of mine, my friend Tom, he's a big wrestling fan. He said to me the other day, it was a very good idea, which was that because when at WrestleMania we saw Taker leave the hat and the coat in the center of the ring, that it's presumed it was the end of the Undertaker, in totality. However, could that be just the end of the Dead Man gimmick
and bring back the American Badass?
Yeah, you got it.
Richie, you were saying this the other day.
I was exactly saying it the other day. It would be great to see him come out, you have more mic time, go lay into John Cena, cutting back to where he cut the promo when Cena cut the promo at Roman Reigns thing. You just beat up an old guy with a busted hip. He comes and I'm just an old guy with a busted hip. I'll still beat your ass, boy. This is my yard still. And just take it going complete old school and just beating the living crap out of Cena across the ring. It would be great just to see Taker have some of that old momentum back.
Yeah, I was even saying something like John Cena could kind of take a page out of his book if they wanted to set it up like that. Like he could be like, now it's the 25th anniversary of Raw, and I wanted to come out here and say something very important. I'm gonna be taking a step back as far as my wrestling role goes, and he takes his cap, the John Cena hat.
Blazing in the middle of the ring?
Yeah, he takes that off and along with the T-shirt, and he puts it down in the center of the ring. And as he puts that hat down to touch the ring, the lights go out, and you hear the gong, and the Undertaker comes to the ring.
That would be good.
You know what I'm saying? Because he just did the same thing the Undertaker did. You know what I'm saying? He kind of retired the hat and everything, or whatever you hear, the Dead Man Walking music or whatever it is. Comes down on the motorcycle.
It'll be good. I'm hopeful that is the big one. That the spectacle match.
I gotta tell you, I really wouldn't mind seeing them fight at WrestleMania either.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be
because the two of them put on a great match.
Yeah.
Yeah. Providing Undertaker can actually stand up, because the last time we saw him, he, in certain spots.
Mitch and I can attest to this. We actually met Taker. What was it, back in early December, Mitch?
Yep.
Ace Comic-Con in Nassau Coliseum out here in Uniondale, Long Island, and Taker looked pretty damn good. He was in good shape. He looked like he shed some weight. He looked good.
Excellent. That's great news. I'm hopeful. I'm going to be looking out for this, and I think both of these guys, Cena, from this year, well, back in 2017, a number of occasions, I heard might be Michael Cole, but one of the guys on commentary was going, John Cena, the greatest of all time. And, I think maybe there might be, that could be an issue with The Undertaker, something like that. Because I think recently as well, I saw like a vignette put together and Undertaker was referred to as being greatest of all time. So I think two guys that are both spoken of in that way, it makes perfect sense to get them in the ring and sort it out.
I like how on a side note, did you notice, Rich, that when Howie does like the ring announcer or the commentator, that he goes into he does like an American accent, and
this is true. Yeah.
You can't even tell that he's English. That's pretty funny.
Yep.
I didn't even notice I did it.
It's cool. It's like he's the man of 1,000 voices. We had Malenko with a man of 1,000 moves. He's a man of 1,000 voices.
There you go.
All right. So, it should be fun at the episode next week. I just got to do like a little side note. We left out one match that I had written down, but for some reason I grazed over it. But there was also, it wasn't like a huge deal, but we missed Matt Hardy versus
yeah. I heard his new music for the first time.
Oh, it sounds awesome. It's a cool theme.
He's got a new Titantron video because I think last week he still had his Hardy Boys.
They really couldn't put that together. Like, when they first had him debate with the new theme, they couldn't get the freak Titantron working properly for him.
That does my head in. That is such a... Somebody should get fired for that. That is like, it's like you're launching a new gimmick and you give him the Hardy Boys Titantron. It's like you're fired.
Whoever was in charge of that Titantron, you will be deleted.
Yeah, completely.
And also we forgot. Well, Matt Hardy went over obviously, but we also forgot the fact that Braun Strowman was rehired again, and this recap is all messed up this week. It's all mixed up, but it's okay. We wound up talking about a ton of other things in between, but.
I think that's our unique selling point. There's loads of podcasts out there which are really slick, probably way more informative than ours. But actually, life isn't perfect, and maybe we're just a better reflection of what people can really associate with.
That's it.
It's a great selling point, when you guys, everybody listening, can listen to this for the low price of $0
and 0 cents.
There you go.
There's no annoying adverts.
Yeah.
There's no sponsorship.
You don't have to worry about that.
Sponsorships in between. Not, that's because we haven't got any. But yeah, think of all the pros here.
Well, we do have a sponsor, HastelToy.com.
Hastel Toy, of course.
Yeah.
For all of
Toy.
retro toy needs.
Yes, and also
Wrestling
Figure Workshop. That's right. The two sponsors of this podcast.
That's the plug. If you haven't noticed, ladies and gentlemen, that is the plug. Okay, so please check.
The plug of
please
plugs,
check both of those sites out. Great sites. You'll definitely want to check it out. Guarantee it.
But thank you, Rich, for that. I appreciate that.
Very welcome.
But yeah, so and then he got rehired, and then he picked up Michael Cole, and Michael Cole basically did a stage dive into a bunch of quote unquote security guards. And that was what happened also on Raw.
Security guards who just happened to all be accumulated at the side of the stage together at one time. They must have been there just chatting, talking bullshit. And then here comes Michael Cole. Michael, how rude is Michael Cole?
Braun, put me down, Braun! Braun, put me down! Put me down!
Yeah, it looked like he gave Michael Cole the ultimate wedgie too. Like when he was picking him up, did you see? He was picking him up by the pants.
And then the poor
and then DX all over again.
Then if you listen to after he gets thrown, and of course the audio's got to pick it up. The guy goes, "Michael, are you okay?" "I'm good." You clearly hear it on the audio after the spot. "I'm good."
God. So, I think that just
Amazing.
about wraps it up for Monday Night Raw. All right, guys. So we're gonna go into our topic of the week, which is gonna be action figure related. So it's right up some of our viewers' alley. I know a lot of you guys know us from, like I said, Hastel Toy and Wrestling Figure Workshop over on Instagram. I gotta say it like that because I always kept I kept leaving out the workshop part last week. So, but the topic of the day is regarding the WWF's infamous line of Hasbro figures, which have since returned in the form of retro action figures from the Mattel brand Hasbro's, which will be another topic at another time. But just giving a little feedback for those of you who do not know, and are fans of the podcast that don't know about the retro line that came out, which is extremely, extremely, extremely popular and awesome in the scene. So tonight's topic is going to be the worst WWF Hasbro figure ever released. And I guess we're going to start it off with Richie. Richie, what do you think is the worst Hasbro figure that it's ever come out for the WWE line?
I don't have like one particular figure, but the style for the figures, I would say the Together legs was kind of lackluster, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna 100% agree with you on that. But if you had to narrow it down to one that particularly grinds your gears and that you really, really hate to look at, when you look at it, it makes you just want to take a steaming, what on it. Which figure would you pick?
Probably the head shrinker, Samu. I would probably say.
Oh, yeah, it was pretty rough how they gave him that gigantic upper body and those
Yeah.
tiny little skinny legs.
Yeah.
He had that jumper action, the Together legs, as it's been dubbed. Some people call them jumper legs. Whatever they are, they're just terrible, folks. They are just terrible.
Yeah.
I gotta agree with you on that. So, we're gonna go over to Howie. Howie, what do you think is the worst, in your opinion, Hasbro figure that's ever come out?
Okay, so I've had a real long think about this because I'm a big fan of the Hasbro line. For me, I actually think the quality, and I think it's not just me, I think people recognize that the quality of the figures decreased as the lines continued and went forward. And so for me, my pick is from series, I believe, 11. Might be 12.
The final series. The
final series.
Infamous green card series.
The infamous green card. For me, the worst figure is Ludwig Borger. Not because of the head sculpt, not because of the upper body, torso, arms. For me, it's the legs.
Why do you mean by that? I mean, I know we had the Hulk Hogan, like the tall legs.
Which is a great sculpt,
right.
But it's the paint application. Now, Ludwig Borger had these kind of tights that he would wear that kind of cropped off at his calf, and then had short boots. And they've actually painted the flesh onto the sculpted detail of where bootlaces are.
Yep.
And that one detail for me just is such an unforgivable lack of care, because they have so many other kind of parts that were available within the range of existing molds, existing tooling. And so they could have picked something more appropriate for that detail. And so for me, there's a lot of that. I think that line in that series, my mind boggles, because that line is obviously one of the rarer series. So they're quite sought after figures, Ludwig Borger, but also Crush and Adam Bomb. The bodies that they used for those were used on Mr. Perfect.
Yep.
And he's much shorter in real life. And those two guys were monsters. They were much taller. So they should have used the Hogan legs on those guys.
They should use the Hogan legs with the singlet top, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that would have made much more sense. So that level, that kind of inaccuracy is the thing that I judge a figure on. So when a figure has the right sculpt with the right paint job and everything's accurate and works well, I think, that's a nicely executed product, because at the end of the day, that's what they are, they're products. But when I see something that's kind of just kind of not considered in that to that extent. That for me is represented very much by Ludwig Borger by Hasbro, and so therefore that is my worst figure from the line.
Yeah, I actually So what you would are you saying that possibly Adam Bomb could possibly be your second most hated Hasbro figure since he had that tiny body and he was supposed to be a monster of some sort?
I don't think they're bad figures, really. I do think they're pretty neat, but just wrong part choices. Yeah. I dislike them for that, but they're not bad. They're not bad figures, not in the same way that Ludwig Borger is. But yeah, they could have done it differently.
Actually, back in the day, I actually made an RVD custom Hasbro figure that I actually used that upper body with the Hulk Hogan legs, and it actually looked awesome because you can make him do the kicks, the split-legged moonsault. This is back when I still had my little toy federation and everything. And he was able to do all the moves that RVD did, and it looked legit. It was pretty good. So,
yeah, see now that's more considered. You put more thought into that than Hasbro clearly did with that final series, and it's a shame.
Although I did think that the overall, if they had just retooled those boots, which they probably didn't have the funds or the
will. They didn't have the will.
It's a
lost
shame.
Interest.
It's a shame that we never got those orange wrestlers that they were supposed to make, the orange carded series.
Yeah, Jeff Jarrett and Bastion Booger,
Diesel.
Diesel. That would have been great. I would love to have seen a Diesel.
I would have even liked the Men on a Mission. That would have been cool to see them as Hasbro's, But yeah,
for sure.
So
how about you, Mitch? What's your pick?
There's a few. I'm definitely not a fan at all, and I despise the together legs, also the jumper body. But I'm gonna say, to get away from like the jumper thing, that would probably be like up there. But I'm gonna say the third Ultimate Warrior figure is probably one of my least favorite Hasbro's of all time. That's the Ultimate Warrior where you had to push his legs down and make his arms so his arms could go up and down, like push his feet down. And it was a mechanism where it looked like he was doing like a berserker rage or something, like up and down with his hands. And it's one of the more expensive carded Hasbro's that you can buy, and even loose, it fetches anywhere between $40 and $50 in good condition, like mint condition. But I just feel like it's such a weak figure. It looks like he has no neck. He almost looks like a humpback if you look at it from the side. He's like hunched over.
Yeah.
And I thought that mechanism was terrible too. You couldn't turn his waist. You don't need his feet to move. You know what I'm saying? You need the legs and the torso to move and the head to turn. Like the head couldn't even turn. It was like a figure that was just like, it's almost like he was frozen, stuck in one position. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
It was to me, those, and then also goes for Skinner, which I think looked just as terrible. Look, maybe if you just look at the Skinner, he's okay. Steve Kern was Skinner, but that particularly grinded my gears. Those figures. So.
The points you highlighted, the sculpt was definitely off with that one. The purple warrior. It was. I remember the first time I found that figure. It was at a car boot sale. I don't know if you use that term in the States.
It's like a flea market, right?
It's like when people want to get rid of the stuff out of their home and they all go and set up in a car park or a field somewhere and they sell from the back of their car.
Yeah. Yeah, we call it a flea market here, something like that.
So yeah, that kind of thing. I actually got a Hasbro ring in the box with the warrior, that purple warrior, and I think I got Sergeant Slaughter and the Hasbro belt, all in one. And I'd never seen. This is obviously way before the internet, and if you had never seen it before, and you just find something for the first time. It's like, what the hell is this? I found that Purple Warrior. So, and I thought at the time, I thought it's really cool. I've never seen this figure before, but yeah, when it comes to the details, and you look at it now, he definitely has a bit of a hunchback.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
I kind of see it from their point of view as Hasbro, when they were developing these figures, they were coming up with, there's that they want to come up with new mechanisms that do engaging things to play with. And so the jumpers, that was one thing, because they think, okay, Jimmy Snuka, he's a high flyer, we'll give him some, he'll do his splash.
To me, that was the only figure that had those jumper legs that I thought was acceptable, was the Snuka figure. I don't know why. I guess because he was the Superfly and he looked like he was doing this. But for me, that it just seemed like he was the only one to me that was acceptable, that he had those. Maybe because they went the extra mile and they made it so that he actually had feet. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like he had toes sculpted and everything like that, so it looked cool.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. On the new, I know we weren't going to speak too much about the new line, the Mattel Retros, but on the jumpers in those, I love the fact they've got these kind of molded kind of rubber feet as opposed to the solid plastic, so you can get a better angle.
It's a soft feel, like you can, almost like when you launch them, it almost looks like they're springing, like you said, they're kind of like bending their legs to jump.
They really fly. They really fly, and that's a nice. I like the fact they've taken into consideration something that can enhance that, make it better. But at the end of the day, you do have a bigger lump on their back, which is you
makes
can't
them
pin
look
them.
like a humpback also.
It sounds like I'm playing with them now. I'm not playing with them. I'm just I'm analyzing them. I'm looking at how they work. They've got the new figures as well. Got really solid mechanisms inside as well. And you can, with the ones that do the gorilla press, there was always this thing with the old Hasbro ones. If you pushed one arm up and one arm down, they would crack the mechanism and you'd have Mr. Floppy arms. And so, but now they've got it so that, if you've got Brock Lesnar or The Rock, you can actually separate their arms. Doesn't break it. I love the fact that those details have been taken into consideration, but the Hasbro sculpts are better. They're not with Mattel's new line, they've gone for a more generic approach, which in the long run is going to cost them less because they can use those generic parts on more figures. Whereas I think Hasbro had very, very specific sculpts that were, like, think about it, Skinner. It was going to be hard to use some of those parts ever again on other figures.
Right.
But if you look at the lines that they're doing now with Mattel, they're being very clever about keeping everything very generic and adding in detail with paint or with small components that then go onto the figure, such as the Ultimate Warrior's tassels, which just kind of go over his arms, as opposed to being part of the sculpt like the original Hasbro figure was. Anyway, I think I digressed.
There's not a whole lot about retooling. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as them using different body shapes and sizes, it seems like, they made that initial release and then they just, like you said, they kind of just kept that standard of reusing the parts. I mean, and the original Hasbro figures did that too, but for a while they were very unique in their tooling of the body shapes and things like that. But they definitely got lazier as time went on, and they definitely did a lot of repaints in the last few series that you may or may not have expected. You know what I'm saying? Like with the dark blue series, how they did the re-release of Shawn Michaels with the same colors, but then they just did a repaint of silver. And then they
figure. Oh, I tell you what, Ludwig Borger. I was saying all that stuff about Ludwig Borger. I really feel let down. I think a lot of people do by what Hasbro Michaels, giving him the Macho Man body, Macho Man 1 setup, and we saw that amazing picture of the prototype of the I guess it was the arms and the upper body of Virgil, but with the lower body of Bret Hart, I believe. And what a letdown that Shawn Michaels figure was. The head sculpt's great, but you can't do a super kick with the Macho Man 1 legs.
We were talking about this like last week too, when I was on my way to work and I was talking to you, and it's in my imagination I made Shawn Michaels do the super kick, but in reality he couldn't even come close to doing it like legitimately. However, I do think this, if they had used, because I made a custom Shawn Michaels like this, if they had used the Virgil legs with the Macho Man top, I think that would have looked awesome, because I feel like that Macho Man top was definitely more flattering for his upper body than the Virgil, because he was never as, cut up or ripped as the Virgil figure chest made him look. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. True, yeah.
So that slender, like more fit looking top was a better selection, I think, for him. But like I
I'd
said,
love to see that. I'd love to see that custom. If anyone's done it,
I have it.
put it on the
I have
Facebook
it in front
or
of me right
something.
now. I'll send you a picture of it later. But you gotta forgive me though. I made this custom when I was like 16 years old. But this is when acrylic paint and things like that were in its infancy. I'd like to actually repaint it at some point. And
Yeah.
make it look
What
a
did you
little
use?
different.
Enamels or something? They messy
No,
as hell.
I
Enamels.
used regular acrylic paint, but the seal that I used was something like that you and I were talking about. It was like that aerosol spray, like where you couldn't really even out the amounts of spray you use. It was really hard to kind of gauge how much you sprayed, and some parts would come out more glossy, or and they didn't really make a matte back then, like a matte. And this stuff smelled so bad that you had to do it outside, or else you would stink your whole house out. It couldn't be used inside. You couldn't. It was like spray paint. You can't use it inside. So
Yeah, there's the technicalities of customizing. You could do a whole episode about that.
Oh yes, it's coming up, folks. But I wanted to touch upon the action figure aspect. I know last week we did it. We went a little heavy with the review, and then we did our episode about the who should have been world champion that never was, the kind of would be champions. But if you haven't heard it, go back and check it out. If you're just hearing us for the first time, Rich, are you with us?
I'm here. I am here. I was indulging in the knowledge of you two of these Hasbros. It's amazing. the plethora of knowledge between the two of you guys and how you know all this stuff. I was just taken back. I had to take a step back and just listen to all the knowledge. So I definitely appreciate it.
And the cool thing was, Richie actually had the pleasure of knowing me back then when I was actually, I'd say I was one of the original customizers of the Hasbros. And Richie,
as a matter of fact, I used to have a whole ton of those Hasbros, and I actually gave them to Mitch, and hence his customization skills.
Yeah, because I used a lot of them for pieces and parts and things like that. So
yeah,
the first custom I ever did was in 1996, and I did a few. The first one was I just painted over a Scott Steiner Galoob, a Hitman Hart, because I didn't have a Bret Hart figure, and I really wanted. You couldn't find Hasbros in the shops anymore. We're at this kind of point, and I even wrote to Hasbro to sort of say, do you have any more? Where can I find them? And they were like, sorry, but they're we're not making them anymore. Don't know where they could be, but thanks for your letter. And so I made my own from Scott Steiner, and my second. And I was very proud of this. And I actually found a piece of him the other day. We're clearing out
just a piece.
My dad's loft, and I found his legs, but I painted a Virgil to become Booker T from Harlem Heat in WCW, and it didn't turn out too bad. But by today's standards, it wasn't anything.
Yeah, you have to post some of these pictures. I'm gonna post a picture of my Shawn Michaels and my RVD from 1990, circa 1994 or 5 or whatever it was back then. And I'll post them on the Hastel page and also on the wrestling podcast page. Wrestle Geek podcast page, and then people can kind of reference it, so you can check it out on Instagram. I'll be posting it, I guess, by Thursday to kind of cross-reference what we're talking about. Maybe you could do the same, just post a throwback picture.
Oh, I wish I didn't take any. I wish I did. I could probably. Do you know what? I'll just post a picture of the legs of Virgil painted to look like Booker T, because that's what I've got.
That'll work.
I actually started back then as well. I tried to make. I think it was a bit later on. I actually bought. I had a load of pieces lying around. I think I tore apart a Hogan 3, and I was going to use his legs and his arms and then change his torso. probably a Virgil torso, and I was going to try and make a Triple H. I bought some milliput. I didn't have an idea. Had no clue what the hell I was doing with it. I thought, yeah, I'm going to sculpt a Triple H head. I'd never done that before in my life. I had no clue what I was doing. It turned into just a mess. But, you know, that was my first introduction to milliput, and I'm happy to say these days I'm pretty good with it.
Yeah, I've had very little experience with any kind of putty. I used that one that we were talking about the last time very briefly. It came in like a tube or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but that was my only experience, and it wasn't good. And I tried to sculpt a neck once from using like a old Jack's head back in the day to sculpt a neck so it wouldn't look like the person had no neck.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't even remember who it was. It may have been like a Diesel or something like that, but it just didn't work out. It didn't work out in my favor, and I gave up after that. I completely gave up. And yeah, that was the end of my career with the putty. I think it was Sculpey, right, or something like
Sculpey, it's good stuff. Great product. Love Sculpey.
that. Yeah, but maybe back then maybe it wasn't as advanced in the 90s as it is now. You know, I don't know. Well, maybe it was just
You're
me
right.
and I sucked at it.
I reckon back then customizing was very much in its infancy, like you say, and people weren't doing. Yeah, I think there's just more facilities to do it, and because of the internet, the ability to share knowledge and to go on YouTube, check out videos of awesome customizers in all different genres. You know, whether it could be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, could be G.I. Joe, or even Transformers. There's guys in all of those areas, and I learn from looking at other guys' work, and it's all about emulation. All the answers are always in the figures in front of you. Like so when I'm trying to sculpt something, I refer a lot to this because obviously I do a lot of galoobs. The answers are all there in the existing galoob figures. You can look at how they sculpted a neck or they did a torso or something, and it's just a case of kind of just trying to emulate that style and do it how they did it. And that's so I always have things to hand, always have reference figures, ones that are in bad condition because my hands get pretty messy and I don't want to mess up my nice figures. But yeah, it's just a case of
your work is amazing. And just in case you guys didn't know and you want to see some of Howie's work, you can go to
Wrestling Figure Workshop on Instagram and Facebook as well. And yeah, I've got
you have to use
all kinds of
you have to use the German accent when you do it next time.
No, I won't do it now. I won't do it.
Well, and with that note, folks, we're gonna leave you, and we hope you enjoyed this second episode. And I'm happy that we were able to touch upon the action figure world. And like I said, we'll have a lot to talk about next week because we're gonna have that 25th anniversary of Raw, which I think is gonna not only be a kickstart for the Royal Rumble, but it'll also set up some WrestleMania matches. So it should be. It should be interesting. So we'll have tons to talk about. Who knows what else will unfold? Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna leave you for the evening, and we will catch up with you guys again next week. Hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed that you'll be listening once again. So until next week, I'm Mitch.
I'm Rich.
And I'm Howie. Apparently.
And we are the Wrestle Geek Podcast.
Woo!
Good night.